I bought my first Bitcoin 5 years ago. I did not understand what I owned. And over those 5 years, that lack of understanding cost me more than I expected. This is not a success story. It is what 5 years actually teaches you. The things you cannot learn from reading. The things that only become clear when you have lived through enough cycles to see the pattern. I'm Sats, and this is what I know now that I did not know then. Let me start with the thing that took me the longest to understand. Because this is where everything changed. The relationship you have with Bitcoin changes completely depending on whether you understand why you own it. This sounds obvious. It is not. Because I thought I understood it, and I did not. In the early months, I thought I understood why I owned it. I had the arguments ready. Fixed supply, decentralized network, inflation hedge. But those were arguments I had borrowed, not understanding I had built, and borrowed arguments do not hold under pressure. The first time the price crashed significantly after I bought, the arguments did not help me. I could recite them, but I could not feel them. The fear was louder than the logic. And that gap between knowing something and believing it deeply enough that it changes your behavior under pressure is the central challenge of holding Bitcoin for any meaningful length of time. It took me about 2 years and 2 major drawdowns before the understanding was genuinely mine rather than borrowed. Before I could watch the price fall and return to the same question without anxiety. Has anything changed about why I hold this? And find that the answer was no, and feel settled by that, rather than just intellectually convinced. The second thing I know now that I did not know then. This one surprised me. Volatility does not get easier to live with over time, but your relationship with it changes. In year 1, every significant price movement felt like new information. Every crash felt like a signal that something had gone wrong. Every rally felt like vindication. By year 5, the same price movements feel like weather. Not pleasant when it's bad weather, but expected, seasonal, and not a reason to change your fundamental position. That shift is not about nerves or discipline. It is about reference points. In year 1, you have no personal experience of what a Bitcoin crash looks and feels like on the other side of it. By year 5, you have lived through several. The pattern has repeated enough times that the next crash is not unknown territory. It is territory you have covered before. The third thing. This is where most people get it wrong. The people who lose money in Bitcoin are almost always the ones who acted when they should have waited, or waited when they should have acted, not the ones who held through difficulty. I have watched people panic sell at the bottom of every major drawdown. I have watched people buy in a frenzy at peaks they were certain were not peaks. I have watched people switch from Bitcoin to altcoins during runs that made altcoins look obviously better, only to watch those altcoins give back everything and more. The pattern is consistent. The emotional moments, the ones that feel most urgent, most obvious, most necessary to respond to, are almost always the worst moments to act. The price movements that feel like crises rarely are, and the opportunities that feel routine are often the most important. I did not understand that in year 1. I had to learn it from experience. The fourth thing. This is the one most people avoid thinking about. Self-custody is not optional if you own an amount that matters to you. I say this knowing it is not what most beginners want to hear. Setting up a hardware wallet feels like extra steps. It feels like complexity you can defer until later. And for very small amounts in the early stages, exchange custody is an acceptable starting point. But I have watched the FTX collapse from inside it. I have had accounts frozen without explanation on platforms I trusted. I have spoken to people who lost access to significant amounts because a company they trusted made decisions they had no control over. The private key is the Bitcoin. Everything else is a claim on someone else's record of what you own. That distinction sounds abstract until the day it becomes real. And for too many people, by the time it becomes real, it is too late. The fifth thing, and this is the one I find hardest to explain to people who have not lived through it. Bitcoin changes how you think about money. Not in a preachy or evangelical way, just practically. When you hold something with a fixed supply for long enough, and watch the purchasing power of currencies fluctuate around it, your relationship with the concept of money itself starts to shift. I think more carefully now about what money is, how it works, what its relationship is to value, and what it means for something to be a good store of that value. I am not sure I thought seriously about any of those questions before I owned Bitcoin. They were not questions that had occurred to me to ask. That is not an argument for Bitcoin. It is an observation about what 5 years of holding it does to how you think. The sixth thing, the most honest one, and probably the most important. I do not know what Bitcoin will be worth in 5 more years. I have views. I have reasons for those views. But anyone who tells you they know where this goes is either confused about the limits of their own knowledge or selling you something. The history is encouraging, the logic is sound, the uncertainty is real. What I do know is that the 5 years of holding it have been worth it. Not just financially, though they have been that too. Worth it in terms of what I have learned about myself, about money, about risk, about the gap between what I think I can handle and what I actually can. But it did not feel worth it at the time, and that is the part nobody tells you. None of that learning was available from reading. It required time and experience and making mistakes and sitting with the consequences. If you are just starting, you are at the beginning of that process. It is longer and harder and more interesting than most content about Bitcoin suggests. Let's bring it together. 5 years of holding Bitcoin taught me 6 things that reading could not. The relationship you have with it depends entirely on whether you understand it at the level where it holds under pressure, not just at the level where you can articulate it. Volatility does not get easier, but your relationship with it changes. You build reference points from living through cycles, not from reading about them. The people who lose money are almost always the ones who acted on the emotional moments that felt most urgent. Those moments are almost always the worst times to act. Self-custody is not optional once you own an amount that matters to you. The private key is the Bitcoin. Everything else is a claim on someone else's record. Holding Bitcoin changes how you think about money. Not in a preachable way, just practically. And I do not know where this goes. Nobody does. The history is encouraging, the logic is sound, and the uncertainty is real. All three at the same time. If you are at the start of this journey and want to build the foundation that makes the next 5 years worth having, the video on why Bitcoin has value is where I would start. It is the question everything else connects back to. Watch that next. Stack smart, stay curious. See you in the next stack.